Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Let's Dev. Now currently the world is going through some tough times, and hopefully I don't have to spell it out for you, because YouTube doesn't like videos that mention it by name. Anyway, the sense of uncertainty about what tomorrow may bring can be overwhelming at a time like this. I mean, I'm not even sure what state the world will be in by the time this video is released. But as we've done on this channel in the past, we will look at that uncertainty in the face and brave through it the best way we know how, make a game of it. So let's treat ourselves to a brief distraction from the real world and make a good old virtual one. This time we're gonna make a game about being an unnamed viral specimen, where the goal is to infect the unsuspecting public, especially those ignorant fools who don't understand the simple concept of social distancing and those that will still willingly gather for massive public outings. Anyway, today we will work on the basics for our game, including player and people movement. And then we'll start work on the infectious aspects to prep for our next session. Sounds like a plan, so let's not waste any more time and get to the coding. First up was player control, with each direction key setting up a corresponding directional prompt. We're going for a pretty basic aesthetic here, including the movement code. So in the step event, if the player isn't on cooldown for movement, it's able to move in the direction prompted. And so far so good, our player was able to move around on a 16x16 grid. With that working, I switched the camera to move based on the distance between player and mouse, and moved on to the people code. The first thing we needed for our people were vision cones, aka the source of our fail state for this little game. These vision cones would act as one would expect, follow the person that spawned them and face the direction said person is facing. Indeed, we've managed to create vision cones without objects before, but for the sake of simplicity, I'm going with objects. So with the vision cones ready to go, it was back to the people code. It was time to make the people mobile, because half the fun of being an infection is the chase, of course. So much like the player, the people have their own directional prompts and move cooldown. The system works basically the exact same way the players does, only instead of button prompts, the people move on timers. A chunk of these people were then spawned into the world. The results were interesting, if not a little chaotic. People moved in random directions, their vision cones reacted accordingly, and so far that's all we needed the code to do. So to ease up on the chaotic nature a bit, I thought a visual warning would help. An exclamation point was drawn, then the people's cooldown timers were extended, and as a test, a half second into the cooldown phase is when they would choose their next direction. Once the cooldown was finished, the people move, reset any necessary variables, and repeat the process over again. Then in the draw event, when a new direction is chosen, that exclamation mark is displayed in said direction, as a visual warning of sorts for the player. And while the results were still somewhat chaotic and busy, the warning definitely helped out with our clarity issue. And so to add some variance, the people's movement cooldown times were randomized. And with a few tweaks to the timing, the results were coming along much better. Varying the time somehow made it easier to keep track of the action, which is definitely appreciated. And so next up, it was time to move on to infecting these poor unsuspecting fools. An attached variable was added to the player, which would keep track of whatever person the player comes in contact with. When attached to a person, or host as we'll call them, the player loses control and must move with the host. And don't worry, there will be more to this in the future. For now this worked, but there was an issue. If people were able to occupy the same tile, things could get unnecessarily complicated. So to avoid this, a check was added to the people's movement code to only move to a new tile as long as it's unoccupied. And so now that people couldn't stack, it was time for infection. Infection and health variables were added to the people object. These variables would then be drawn as meters above the cursor when hovered over the people. Then in the player code, for now we simply wanted to infect people to death. Well, death for now. We'll change that later. Anyway, when a player attaches to a person, they begin infecting their new host. Then in the people code, once they are fully infected, it begins to deplete their health. And once fully depleted, for now, the infected person is simply deleted from the game. And there we had it, about the halfway mark for our little infection project. For now, it's a pretty grim approach, which was unintentional. Originally, I'd planned to go for more detailed and fun art assets, but I've really grown to like the Atari-like simplistic graphics. I get an odd, bleak vibe, which I think ends up making everything a little bit more grim somehow. But anyway, like I said, next time we'll focus on the second half of this project, which will focus on the actual infestation aspects. But of course, that's next time, because we've come to the end of today's episode of Let's Dev. So leave a like if you enjoyed the episode, subscribe and turn on notifications if you haven't already, and leave your thoughts on our progress in the comments. Thank you so much for watching, stay safe, and I'll see you guys next time.